30 BC, Alexandria, Egypt. The doors of Cleopatra's tomb are sealed from the inside. Within the stone chamber, incense hangs thick in the air. Gold funerary objects catch the light of dying torches. Servants wait in silence, knowing no further orders will come. Cleopatra the seventh, last queen of Egypt, stands inside the monument she built for herself, sealing the doors and denying Rome its prize. Outside, Roman soldiers secure the city. The banners of Octavian fly where the symbols of the Ptolemies once ruled. The Nile still flows, the temples still stand, but Egypt is finished. For 20 years, Cleopatra survived exile, war, and the ambitions of Rome's greatest men. Now Rome has come not to negotiate, but to display her alive and conquered. Cleopatra understands the difference between defeat and humiliation. Before the sun sets, she will decide how history ends her story. Cleopatra was born into a dynasty that devoured itself. The Ptolemies ruled Egypt as Greek kings over an ancient land, their power secured by murder as much as blood. Brothers married sisters, rivals vanished quietly, survival required vigilance. At 18, Cleopatra was named co-ruler beside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. The throne was shared in name only. Courtiers moved against her. Edicts were signed without her consent. Within 2 years, Cleopatra was forced from Alexandria, exiled, a queen without a court, without an army, without a city. She fled east, gathering what loyal forces she could along the borderlands of Syria. Egypt had cast her out, but it had not broken her. Cleopatra learned early what power truly meant in her world. Mercy was weakness. Survival was strategy, and Egypt did not forgive failure. From the borderlands of Syria, Cleopatra gathered what little remained to her. Loyal followers, borrowed coin, hired soldiers. Egypt teetered on the edge of civil war. Then Rome arrived. In 48 BC, Julius Caesar entered Alexandria, chasing his rival Pompey and carrying the authority of the Roman Republic itself. Pompey was murdered on Egyptian soil. Caesar stayed. Cleopatra understood the moment instantly. Rome did not care who ruled Egypt, only that Egypt remained stable, obedient, and rich. If she could reach Caesar, she could reclaim everything, but her enemies controlled the palace. Guards watched every gate. So Cleopatra made a single, irreversible decision. She would place her life and her crown directly in Caesar's hands. Exile had left her with nothing to lose, and one chance to win everything back. Cleopatra was smuggled into the palace at night. Wrapped inside a rolled carpet, a bundle meant as a gift, she was carried past guards and delivered into Julius Caesar's private chambers. When the carpet was unrolled, Cleopatra emerged before him, not pleading, not apologetic, but deliberate. Caesar listened. He saw a ruler driven out by faction, a kingdom on the brink of chaos, and an opportunity Rome could not ignore. Within weeks, Alexandria erupted into war. Fire consumed parts of the city. The palace was besieged. In the chaos, Ptolemy XIII drowned fleeing across the Nile. Cleopatra reclaimed the throne, not as a romantic triumph, but as a political victory sealed by blood and fire. She ruled again. But now Egypt stood beneath Rome's shadow, and Cleopatra knew the truth. She had survived, but the price of survival had only just begun. Cleopatra ruled Egypt in a narrow space between empires. After Caesar's death, Rome fractured. Power passed to uneasy alliances, and Egypt watched carefully. Cleopatra governed efficiently, stabilizing grain shipments, restoring temples, rebuilding Alexandria's prestige. She presented herself not as a Roman subject, but as a sovereign ally. Egypt, ancient, wealthy, indispensable. Yet Rome would not allow neutrality for long. When Mark Antony, Caesar's former lieutenant, summoned Cleopatra to meet him at Tarsus, She understood the stakes. This was not romance. This was alignment. Cleopatra arrived by river in a gilded barge, dressed as Isis incarnate. Antony was dazzled by spectacle, yes, but more by confidence. They forged an alliance of power and pleasure, ambition and excess. For a moment, it seemed Egypt and Rome might rule together, but Rome was already sharpening its knives. Cleopatra and Antony built a world apart from Rome. From Alexandria, Antony ruled the eastern provinces, while Cleopatra reclaimed Egypt's prestige as queen and mother of heirs. Together they staged ceremonies, distributed kingdoms, and imagined an empire centered on the east, rich, ancient, and free from Roman austerity. Children were born, coins bore their faces. Antony lingered. In Rome, power had passed to Octavian, Julius Caesar's adopted heir, young, disciplined, and ruthless in his patience. Octavian understood Antony's weakness immediately. He portrayed Antony as corrupted, enslaved by an Eastern queen, abandoning Roman virtue for luxury and excess. Pamphlets spread, loyalty fractured. Cleopatra understood the danger. Rome tolerated queens only when they knew their place. Antony chose Egypt over Rome, and in doing so surrendered the moral ground. What had begun as strategy hardened into defiance. The alliance that once promised balance now invited war. Rome would not share the world. War came disguised as inevitability. Octavian declared Antony a traitor, not to Rome, but to its values. Cleopatra was framed as the true enemy, foreign, female, and dangerous. In 31 BC, their forces met at sea near Actium off the coast of Greece. Antony's fleet was larger, heavier, slower. Cleopatra commanded Egypt's ships, holding the treasury and escape route behind the lines. As battle turned against them, Cleopatra made a choice. Her ships turned south. Antony followed. The fleet collapsed. The war was decided in a single afternoon. Actium was not a heroic defeat. It was a failure of unity. Rome did not win through brilliance, but through patience and propaganda. From that moment on, Egypt's fate was sealed. After Actium, the illusion shattered quickly. Allies deserted. Cities closed their gates. Antony drank heavily, drifting between rage and despair. Octavian advanced methodically, cutting off supplies and promises alike. In Alexandria, Cleopatra prepared for the inevitable. She stockpiled treasure. She tested poisons. She built the tomb that would become her last refuge. When Octavian's forces entered Egypt in 30 BC, Antony believed Cleopatra dead. In grief and humiliation, he fell on his sword, carried dying to her chambers. He bled out in Cleopatra's arms. The Eastern dream ended not in triumph, but exhaustion. Cleopatra was alone now, a queen without allies, without an army, facing a victor who wanted her alive. The final negotiation was about to begin. Antony was dead. Egypt was surrounded. Cleopatra stood alone again, as she had at the beginning. Octavian entered Alexandria as a victor who did not rush. He knew Cleopatra's value lay in her survival. They met in her palace, then again within the tomb she had sealed. Cleopatra spoke carefully, offering cooperation, even loyalty, anything that might spare her children and preserve Egypt's dignity. Octavian listened, measured, and revealed nothing. Cleopatra understood the truth slowly and with clarity. Rome did not want her dead. Rome wanted her displayed. A queen in chains would legitimize conquest better than any speech. Her intelligence, her bearing, her very survival would be turned into spectacle. For the first time, Cleopatra saw a future where she lived and ruled nothing, and she knew she would not accept it. Cleopatra returned to the tomb she'd prepared. She arranged her treasures carefully. She dismissed most of her servants. Only a few remained, women who had followed her through exile and war. Ancient sources differ on the method, but not the meaning. Whether by asp or poison, Cleopatra chose death over display. She denied Rome its final victory. When Octavian's men forced their way inside, they found the queen laid out in royal dress, composed, unreachable. The spectacle Rome desired had vanished. Cleopatra was 39 years old. She had ruled Egypt longer than any Ptolemy since its founding. She had bargained with Caesar, commanded Antony, and resisted Rome longer than anyone expected. In death, she reclaimed the only power left to her, the power to decide how the story ended. Rome triumphed anyway. Egypt was annexed, its treasury was seized, its grain fed the Roman world. Octavian returned to Rome as the sole master of its armies and provinces. The Republic ended quietly. An empire began. Cleopatra's image was paraded in her absence, a symbol of excess, danger, and foreign threat. Her children were erased from power, her dynasty ended, yet something slipped Rome's grasp. Cleopatra had refused the role assigned to her. She was not chained. She was not silenced on Rome's streets. Octavian gained Egypt, but lost control of her ending. History would remember him as Augustus, founder of empire. Cleopatra would be remembered as something harder to contain. Today, Cleopatra is still argued over. She is called seductress, strategist, traitor, genius, rarely simply ruler. Her enemies wrote the histories, yet beneath the myth, the truth remains clear. Cleopatra ruled in a world that punished female power and foreign independence. She met Rome not with armies, but with intelligence, and held it at bay for a generation. Empires measure success in territory. Cleopatra measured it in agency. Rome conquered Egypt, but it never conquered her story. Stand today beside the waters of Alexandria, and the sea still gleams with the same light Cleopatra once saw from her balcony. The harbor is modern now, but beneath its waves lie columns of her palace, lost to earthquakes, preserved by salt and myth. Her reflection glimmers in every leader who defies inevitability, every soul who meets defeat with grace. Empires crumble, but the spirit of sovereignty, that refusal to kneel, never dies. And beyond Egypt, beyond Rome, another ruler once dreamed even bigger, not of surviving empire, but of conquering the world itself. Next on Mini History, Alexander the Great, the man who tried to outrun history.